Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday afternoon and happy Christmas Eve. Um, we know that many of you are working today, but I know many of you are probably also doing your last-minute holiday preparations for your small family gathering that you're going to have. I'm going to talk about two or three things today. One, we're going to talk about COVID, of course. We're going to talk briefly about the stimulus package that was passed yesterday by Congress, House and the Senate. It's currently in the President's office, and what's in that package. And then we'll talk just for a minute about construction in the city of St. Louis over this last year. And then, of course, we're going to take your questions. So beginning with COVID. Yesterday, the city of St. Louis had 109 new positive tests for COVID. That brings our 7-day rolling average number of cases to 116. And that gives us an average per 100,000 population of 38 and a half, call it 39. And so still the state's average number of positive cases, 7-day rolling average, is 53. St. Louis County is 54, St. Charles is 58, Jefferson 60, Franklin is 55. So city of St. Louis still fewer cases per capita than the surrounding counties. And you know, of course, we don't know exactly what the reason for that is, but I credit the people of St. Louis and the businesses of St. Louis, both who have done a really good job of wearing their mask, of socially distancing, washing hands, and just taking these mitigation strategies very seriously. And, you know, fingers crossed that that continues, and frankly, that the number of cases goes down. So while we have the number of cases going down a tad, we've plateaued this last couple of weeks, but still at a very high level. And so we're concerned about the holidays. We're concerned about tomorrow, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Kwanzaa begins on Saturday. And then, of course, next week we roll right into the new year. We know there are normally lots of celebrations. I hope all of you have adjusted your normal plans so that your group is very small. Ideally, your household or people that are within your very close pod. And if you are getting together with a neighbor or a couple of friends, that you will continue to wear your masks and socially distance, even though it can be a bit awkward. I get that, especially at a time of year when we're all feeling very thankful and grateful for the friends and family that we have who are hopefully supporting one another. But you know, we have to maintain that distance. We are concerned, and when I say we, I'm really talking about the hospitals, the pandemic task force. We are all concerned that we'll backslide over these holidays, and that then we'll see a big uptick in the number of cases. And we know that the number of cases drives the number of people in the hospital, and unfortunately, the number of people who ultimately pass away from COVID. So please just try to stick with the protocols here. We do have the vaccine on the horizon. It's still going to be several months before the general public gets the vaccine. And so we're not there yet. So please stick with the mitigation strategies. And thank you to all of the residents and the businesses, both of whom in the city of St. Louis have really done a good job. So let's keep that up. I'm going to talk for a second about hospital numbers. You know that hospital numbers are lagged 2 days. And so these numbers are from Monday, Sunday to Monday. because here we are just Wednesday afternoon, there were 885 confirmed COVID positive individuals in our hospitals. Another 77 in the hospital who were suspected of having COVID, but the test result had not come back yet. So for a total of 962, that's still very high and is significantly stressing the hospital's capacity, and most importantly, the doctors, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, X-ray, all the people who work in the hospitals, even admission, housekeeping, dietary, all of those folks being very stressed by this heavy load of patients. So of these 962 individuals that were in the hospital with COVID or suspected of having COVID, 196, so about 20% of them were in the ICU, and of those people, 120 were on ventilators. So that is a very serious situation. Their patients admitted 2 days ago was 118. That's still up there. That hasn't gone down much. That's significantly higher. The day before was 87, for example. And so it was up 31. And there were 143 people discharged. So we just are continuing to see a high number of cases, which means we're continuing to see more and more people go into the hospital. So those are the COVID numbers. I mentioned, of course, sticking with the mitigation strategies, mask wearing. We just have to continue to do that. And if we can do that, and we've got January and February, which generally are going to be cold and keep us inside, and so we've got to stick with that until we can get to the spring and get to a vaccination. So that's it for COVID right now for me. I'll take your questions about COVID, of course, shortly. The other thing to talk about today, and I know that you all are probably following this on the news and in the newspapers, etc., but yesterday the Congress and the Senate did pass the COVID relief bill. It has gone over to the president's desk. The president made some comments about thinking that the relief to individuals should be more than it is. I don't know how that's going to play out. We'll know something by the end of the day or tomorrow on that. But the bill that is on the president's desk right now provides for $600 per person for anyone who, as a single person, makes less than $75,000, a couple less than $150,000. So $600. The thought was that those checks might be coming out next week or even the week after, but very soon. That's the controversy, is that the president has made a statement that he believes that check should be more. I certainly am positive about having the check be more, but I don't want this to get held up any longer. So hopefully that will resolve itself here in the next few hours. Included in that bill is the $600 for individuals, $300 more per week for unemployment benefits for 10 weeks for those folks that have lost their jobs or had their hours significantly reduced because of COVID. Also in the bill is a significant amount of money for rental assistance and an extension of the eviction moratorium. The extension of the eviction moratorium is only until the end of January of 2021, but we believe that that's at least an extension and will provide some relief until a new administration is in place and may be able to do more then. Also assistance for utilities. And then for small businesses, there's a considerable amount of money, let me get the number here, $325 billion for small business assistance nationwide. And this is what we called originally PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. Most of it is in the Paycheck Protection Program. And so those are loans, but they will become grants. The loan will be forgiven if certain criteria are met on the spending. And that criteria has to do with if the money is spent on software, cloud computing, if the money is related to property damage or vandalism, if the payments are made to suppliers of essential goods, and of course, for paycheck, continuing to pay employees. So there's a lot of details in this. This bill is, I have a summary here in front of me, but the bill is over 5,000 pages, almost 6,000 pages. So there's a lot in it, but there are some very key things in there which should provide some relief to individuals and small businesses in the very near future. So we've all been waiting on that for a long time. A lot of people say, well, it should be more, it should be, you know what, it's important to get something done and signed at this point, because we have been waiting on this bill for months. So I'm glad that it looks like something's going to get done here. So that is the new COVID relief bill. And then the third subject, this is switching subjects a little bit, but a bit of good news here. Yesterday, I believe it was, the city of St. Louis went over $1 billion for 2020, even in year 2020, more than $1 billion in construction permits. And there'll be a little more by the end of the year. We've got another 9 days to go, right? But one thing to point out about this, it's 1,220,000. That was yesterday's number. And 185 million of that, so about 19%, was in residential construction. 3/4 of $1 billion, $752 million, was in commercial development, and another 63 million in industrial. And those are just kind of some round numbers, but this is only the second time in the history of the city that we've issued $1 billion worth of construction permits in 1 year. One of the things to remind you of also is that this $1 billion does not include any of the construction related to NGA. And that's because the federal government doesn't have to get building permits when they build something. And so in addition to this $1 billion, we've got $1.7 billion, which will be spent over several years, about four years or so, in the construction of NGA. But, that's good. What that means is that we've got a lot of people working. And that is the absolute key, of course, is for people to have jobs, have a paycheck, be able to provide for their families. The CNR, the Construction News Record, just issued an article a few days ago that said National Industry Survey of major U.S. cities ranks St. Louis the second highest in terms of being a best city for construction work. And according to the construction insurance provider, that's who did the survey here, only Chicago rated better than we did, and the 7 factors considered were weather, the average annual salary, the area job competition, the number of open federal government contracts, number of open and ongoing local construction projects, and the cost of living and overall unemployment rate. This survey was done in September, so just 3 months ago. The St. Louis average annual construction salary is more than $63,000, and that, of course, is a good salary that can support a family. And so a little bit of excitement. I think what that says is that 2020 has been a heck of a year. We all know that. It has been a year of of protests. It's been a year of racial reckoning. It's been a year of a worldwide pandemic. It's been a year when a lot of people have been put out of work because of the pandemic. But it also, there are still a lot of construction projects going on in the city of St. Louis. And so there are a lot of people continuing to invest and work and build our city and build on that momentum that we had going pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, the city of St. Louis had the best economic outlook that we've ever had in terms of revenue. Now, we all know that COVID has just put that in the ditch. But the good news is that construction is continuing. People are still investing and people are still working. So just to end on a little bit of good news before this holiday. So that's all I had. Art, do we have any questions?
Just a few questions so far today.
Might not be many people watching on the Wednesday before Christmas.
Just a few. Can you speak to what is currently required of restaurants and bars as we head into the holiday season and New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Current restrictions.
Yes. Bars and restaurants must close at 11 p.m. That's been in place for a while now, and that's going to continue. Bars and restaurants have to have no more than 50% occupancy, and this is very important, they have to require masks, and they have to require social distancing, so at least 6 feet apart, tables 6 feet apart. The only exemption from the mask is when you're sitting at your table eating or drinking. Otherwise, you get up to go to the restroom, you get up to go to leave, come in or go out, you've got to be wearing your mask. And so that in the city of St. Louis, those are the restrictions on bars and restaurants. And let me just say thank you to the bars and restaurants. You know, I've been to a number over the last few weeks, months, and what I observe, a lot of people are taking this very seriously and doing a good job. Very important from my point of view to keep our bars and restaurants open with these restrictions to be able to balance jobs for people who work in that industry. So.
And then the other question related to bars and restaurants was, does the city anticipate that guidance changing? And does the city believe that they have been the source of significant transmission of COVID-19?
There's no changes that are on the immediate horizon. I think, this has proven to work pretty well in the city. But if the data shows us something different, then of course there could be additional restrictions or even the loosening of restrictions. Right now, we feel like we've struck about the right balance here. So can't predict the future, but we think we're in the right place right now. And I think the second part of that question was, do we see evidence that bars and restaurants are the source of spreading COVID? I think, was that the gist of the question? So what we have seen is that COVID is being spread often in private homes, in little parties that you get together, in that, Christmas that you might have had with your family over the weekend or that you're about to have. One person there who comes down with COVID or who's not feeling well or who is even asymptomatic can expose your entire family. And what we have seen is that the spread is happening primarily among family and friends, friend groups, neighbors, etc. We do have a restriction, no more than 10 people gathering at one time. But we also understand that it's your home, it's your house. We're just trying to encourage you not to have a big gathering. And so we're still doing that, but that's where we see the spread happening.
Just a few more questions, kind of light today. But Jim had a question about the relief bill that has passed in Congress. What does it mean for the city of St. Louis? Do we expect to receive any funding from whatever comes out of that?
So Jim, we're still in the process of reading this over 5,000 pages. We've got some folks that are helping us with that. There may be some direct relief to the city for mortgage and rental assistance. In other words, the money would come through the city and then be dispersed out to landlords. We'd use a third party to take applications and that sort of thing. There is no money in this bill, Jim, for to directly help cities replace lost revenue. And you all know that our budget, we are looking at potentially lost revenue in the city of St. Louis, $65–70 million. That's sales tax, it's restaurant tax, it's hotel motel tax, it's all kinds of different revenue streams that are reduced, and there is no money in this bill to give direct aid to cities or local governments.
And the last question we have is from a downtown resident, different topic. Verse is watching, lives on Wash Ave, wants to hear from you about some recent shootings that have been in the news, and if you can speak to downtown being a safe place to live. So,
I know that there was a shooting on Washington Avenue on Sunday evening, I believe it was, and it involved some vehicles. Of course, we have a lot of law enforcement on Washington Avenue. We've made some traffic restrictions in order to try to tamp down the reckless driving. But we do continue to see across our city way too much violence. And it's not just, there certainly is some in downtown, but it is across our city, particularly in some of our more challenged neighborhoods. So it is something that our police department is working on day in and day out, and we appreciate residents who are very concerned about it. I'm extremely concerned about it as well. On Washington Avenue and in our other neighborhoods that are experiencing a lot of violence as well. We live in a community, a state with extremely easy access to guns. We have an increase in homicides in our city of about, I think it was 28%, close to 30% this year over last year. We're living in a situation where people have lost their jobs, their hours have been reduced, there's a tremendous amount of stress, there's a lot of additional family disputes, domestic violence, and so that hits every part of our city. So that is certainly something that we're unhappy about, and we understand that if you live on Washington Avenue, or if you live on Natural Bridge, or if you live on Kings Highway, or I can name any number of streets that you're similarly very concerned about that happening in your neighborhood.
That is it for questions today.
That's it for questions today. Thank you all. Let me just say, this was our last time together before the holidays, so let me say to all of you, Merry Christmas. All of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Kwanzaa begins on Saturday. Happy Kwanzaa. And we'll be back and chat with you next Wednesday before the new year. And so have a great weekend. Enjoy your family and friends in a safe way. Merry Christmas to all and Happy Kwanzaa. Thank you.